there's a particular kind of loneliness. The kind where you're surrounded by people, but they're not really there. You can talk to them anytime, message them, call them, but you can't sit across from them. You can't see their face the way a real face looks. You can't be in the same room and just exist together. And for some people, this has become their entire social world. They have friends, real connections, but they only exist through a screen. You might know someone like this. You might be someone like this. And the thing about it is, it doesn't feel wrong at first. It feels convenient, easy, safe. You can curate what they see. You can log off when it gets too much. You can be whoever you want to be without the consequences of physical presence. But there's a psychology underneath this that's worth understanding, because choosing online-only friendships isn't usually about preferring screens. It's about fear. Here's what's interesting. Online friendships give you something that in-person friendships don't: complete control. You control the timing of the conversation. You control what you share. You control how much of yourself is visible. In-person friendships require vulnerability of a different kind. They require your body, your facial expressions, your actual presence in a space, and that's terrifying for some people. Think about it. When you're online, you have time to think about your response. You can edit what you say. You can delete messages before sending them. You can present a version of yourself that's polished, perfected. When you're sitting across from someone, you can't do that. You can't take back your awkward laugh. You can't unsay the thing that came out wrong. You're just there, raw, unfiltered. And for people who are afraid of being seen, actually being seen, that's unbearable. Online friends also don't require reciprocal presence. If you're not in the mood, you can disappear. You can be busy. You don't have to explain. You don't have to show up in the way that in-person friends require. You don't have to sit in discomfort. You don't have to be vulnerable in a shared physical space. You can maintain distance while still feeling connected. And that's a very powerful thing for someone who's afraid of intimacy. What's really important to understand is that this isn't laziness. This isn't introversion. Introverts can have in-person friends. This is about anxiety. This is about a specific kind of fear that makes physical proximity feel dangerous. It's about abandonment anxiety. It's about social anxiety. It's about shame that's so deep that the thought of being fully seen, body, presence, all of it feels impossible. Online-only friends are also, in a strange way, less likely to truly know you. Because the internet is inherently curated. Even the most authentic people online are presenting a version of themselves. And someone who only has online friends often becomes very skilled at this. They know exactly what to say. They know how to maintain connections without ever actually revealing anything that matters. They've created personas, different versions for different people, and nobody gets the real them because the real them has never been physically present with another human being. The isolation this creates is profound, because you can be messaging 5 people and still feel completely alone. You can have a group chat and still feel like nobody knows you. You can scroll through comments and interactions that make you feel momentarily connected, and then you log off, and there's nothing. No one. Just silence and screens. What makes this even more complex is that online friendships can actually prevent real friendships from forming, because every moment you spend online is a moment you're not spending building real connections. Every time you choose to text instead of call, message instead of meet, you're reinforcing the pattern. You're strengthening the neural pathways that say in-person connection is unsafe. And the longer you do this, the harder it becomes to break the pattern. And here's where it gets dark. Some people who only have online friends are actually using those friendships as a substitute for the intimacy they need. They're using the illusion of connection to avoid the real thing. They can feel like they have a full social life because they have 10 online friends, but they're missing something fundamental. They're missing the experience of being physically present with someone who knows them. They're missing the vulnerability that comes with real friendship. They're missing the growth that happens when you have to navigate actual human relationship in real time. Online friends also can't really show up for you in practical ways. They can't bring you soup when you're sick. They can't sit with you when you're grieving. They can't give you a hug. They can't do the things that friendships are actually for. Real friendship is about presence. It's about showing up. It's about being there. And an online friend, no matter how well-meaning, can't do that. The thing is, online friendships often have an expiration date. Because they're built on performance. They're built on the version of you that you're willing to show. and at some point, the gap between that version and the real version becomes too big. The friendship feels hollow. It feels performative. And it ends. And then you're back online, looking for the next connection. The next person who thinks you're interesting. The next community where you feel like you belong. But you never really do, because you've never shown them the real you. This is the part where we have to look at what's actually driving this pattern. Because choosing to only have online friends doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from an experience, or many experiences. It comes from learning that the real world isn't safe for you, that your physical presence isn't welcome, that something about you isn't acceptable when you're actually there in front of someone. Many people who only have online friends grew up in environments where they felt deeply unsafe being seen. Maybe they were bullied in school. Maybe they were rejected by peers repeatedly. Maybe they developed a physical difference that made them feel ashamed. Maybe they learned that their body was something to hide, and the internet became a place where they could escape that, where they could be invisible and visible at the same time, where they could have a voice without having a face. Some grew up with parents who were critical of their appearance, or their social skills, or the way they moved through the world. They learned that there was something fundamentally wrong with them physically, something that people wouldn't like if they saw it. So they learned to hide. The internet was perfect for that. They could create an identity that had nothing to do with their body, that had nothing to do with how they looked or moved or existed in physical space. Others had social anxiety that developed from somewhere, from a bad experience, from repeated rejection, from being told they were weird or strange or didn't fit in, and the internet became a place where they had control, where they didn't have to navigate the unpredictability of in-person interaction, where they could manage their anxiety by simply not being there. Some grew up in isolated environments, rural areas, or with parents who didn't encourage outside friendships, or in situations where in-person connection was just difficult for circumstantial reasons. And the internet became their lifeline. It became the only way they could connect with people who understood them. And by the time they had the option of in-person friendships, they'd become so comfortable online that the idea of trying to build real friendships felt impossible. The real tragedy is what this pattern does to your sense of self. Because when you only have online friends, you never get the experience of being fully known. You never get the feedback that comes from a real human interaction. You never have to adapt in real time. You never have to navigate the messiness of actual relationship, and so you don't develop certain skills. You don't build resilience. You don't learn how to be vulnerable in front of someone and have them accept you anyway. And the shame builds, because you know something is different about you. You know you're the person who doesn't have real friends. You know everyone else is out there building actual connections while you're at home on your phone. And that shame makes you hide more. It makes you isolate more. It makes the thought of in-person connection feel even more impossible. The other thing that happens is that you start to believe that you're not actually worth real friendship, that you're only acceptable online, that your real self is too much or not enough, that you need the internet's distance to be acceptable. And that belief shapes everything. It shapes how you interact. It shapes what you think you deserve. It shapes your entire life. People who only have online friends often struggle with intense loneliness even when they're connected, because they know, on some level, that these connections aren't real, that they're not being known, that they're not being chosen. They're being liked. They're being followed. They're being engaged with. But they're not being truly seen, and that difference is devastating. The path forward is actually about exposure. It's about slowly, carefully, beginning to exist in physical space with other people. It's not about forcing yourself into situations. It's about starting small. Joining a group, taking a class, going to a meetup, putting yourself in a space where real interaction is possible. And it's terrifying, because every fear you have about being physically present will come up, every anxiety, every shame. But it's also where the growth is. It's about learning that your body is not your enemy, that your presence is not unwelcome, that there are people in the world who will like the real you, not the online version, the actual, physical, imperfect, real you. And that experience being accepted by someone who can see you, who can hear you in person, who can be in the same room as you, that's transformative. It's also about being honest about what you're afraid of. Not just that in-person friendship is hard, but specifically what scares you. Is it rejection? Is it judgment? Is it your appearance? Is it social awkwardness? Is it the unpredictability? Once you know what the fear actually is, You can start to address it. You can start to challenge it. You can start to realize that most of the time, the thing you're afraid of isn't actually what happens. If this resonates, if you're recognizing yourself in this pattern, if you're sitting alone with your phone feeling both connected and completely isolated, that's important information. That's your soul telling you something is missing. And yes, the internet is great. Online connections matter. But they can't replace real friendship. They can't replace the experience of being physically present with someone who knows you and likes you anyway. The path to changing this isn't about deleting your apps or becoming anti-internet. It's about acknowledging that you deserve real friendship, that you deserve to be known, that your physical presence has value, that the real you, imperfect, awkward, scared, all of it is worth showing up for. And it's about taking one small step toward that. One class, one meetup, one moment of actual vulnerability with a real human being. Understanding these patterns, recognizing the ways we hide and isolate, that's what we're doing here at The Forgotten Self. We're looking at the psychology behind the choices we make, the fears that drive us, the ways we protect ourselves that end up hurting us. If this video helped you see something about yourself, if it cracked something open, subscribe. Because we're building a community where isolation gets named, where fear gets acknowledged, where connection becomes possible. Until next time, remember that your presence matters. Your real, physical, imperfect presence. And there's someone out there who's waiting to know you, actually know you.